Jennifer, what is up? Thank you so much for being willing to let me interview you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So how long have you been homeschooling?
For 10 years. We've been doing CC for 9 years. We started when my oldest was in first grade, and he's challenge 1 now.
Wow, that's awesome. And if I can, why did you guys make the decision to homeschool?
Initially, when we had kids, we did not intend to homeschool. And then as we had babies and toddlers, I met more and more people doing it that seemed like normal people, that were not, super brilliant. I mean, smart people, but like maybe I could do it too. You know what I mean? And I read a bunch of books and just realized it just was like a natural extension of the parenting we were already doing. And so we figured we were always like 1 year at a time homeschoolers, we were kindergarten, we're like, we'll just try this out. You can't mess up kindergarten too bad, right? And then it just kept going. And it wasn't until a couple years ago when my oldest did challenge 1, A, and I was directing it, when I realized, like, I really, really caught the, wait, we probably will do this through high school, before that it was always like, probably not high school, that sounds scary, and a lot of people don't do that, but yeah, we're all in now, so.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome. What is some advice that you could give to a newer homeschool mom or family that's maybe just started within the last year or two?
Probably being willing to, for me, when I first started out, I basically had a couple friends that I was like, I like what you're doing, I like your kids, and I like you, I'm going to do what you're doing, which, and then over the years, I slowly took what I was copying from them and kind of made it my own and dropped some things. Now what I do looks very different from those particular people, actually. And it's all good. I still like their kids, I still like them. So I think it's okay to start out there, if it's overwhelming, there's so many options of how you could do this. Even within CC, there's so many options, right? So even if you pick a pretty big chunk, it could be overwhelming. And so to just kind of pick something that looks good for now and just know that you don't have to keep doing it exactly this way. So just prayerfully reevaluating and filtering for what is good and what's helpful for you. And what you need, and just leaving the rest, and that's okay.
I love that. You said some great things there. I love what you said about, whatever you do today is not necessarily what you have to do tomorrow. Right. So that was a great point. And then I also love what you said about prayerfully reevaluating, just always, okay, God, what do we want it to look like now? And, just that thought process, I think, is super helpful. Okay. How about for maybe a family that is a veteran homeschooling family? So maybe, 5, 8, 10 plus years, what would be something that you could share with them that would be encouraging, or even as a good reminder, right? There's some great reminders as veteran homeschooling families that, I never get sick of hearing.
My board over there.
Oh,
we
yeah,
had I think it was 2 years ago, I decided to have a motto, because that's the cool thing homeschoolers do, is they have their school motto or whatever. And so of course, I couldn't pick one. So my 3 things are practice makes permanent. So that's actually more for my kids. Never mind, that's not for parents. Do less, well, and multum non multa. So much, not many. Do less, do it well. We don't have to have all the things. So reminding ourselves that all the time, there was actually one of the moms that you interviewed last week. She said when she said it, I was like, that's exactly what I would say, I'm always looking for things to take out. What am I doing that's too much? What is just not necessary because I'm not seeing the big picture, So I always need to be reminded of that, because we often think that we're not doing enough. And sometimes when we start adding in all the things and comparing ourselves to traditional schooling, we lose the relationship with our kids because we're filling it with superfluous stuff.
Excellent. I love that thought. It's almost like the visual I got when you were talking. It's almost like what happens the longer you live in a home. we just slowly start to accumulate, and then we move or something. It's like, where did all this stuff come from?
Mm.
Our lives and our homeschools can kind of reflect that same dynamic,
Yeah.
and we can miss the forest for the trees. So that's a
Right.
great point. Okay, what about the family that, due to our current societal global circumstances right now, with the coronavirus and all the different things, schools being shut down for a month, some of them 2 months, some of them not, shut down through August. What advice would you give to maybe those families that are kind of forced into homeschooling and having never considered it before? What advice could you share with maybe those families?
I feel really intimidated about that one. I've had a lot of Facebook friends that have been, asking, like trying to pull together like the homeschoolers give advice, and I'm like, I just don't think I can in some ways, because it's just very different. Because I've chosen to do like what, sometimes when people ask me why I homeschool, sometimes I just say because I want to, like if I didn't want to, I wouldn't do this. I don't feel like I have to, right? Keeping that in mind, I guess, if I had to give some sort of advice, I would probably recommend the idea of focusing on time together, like just bonding time, things that are not, like reading as much as possible, just reading together, things that are, you could make things educational, but to not try and necessarily be replicating school at home, because even if it's just temporary, it's not like you're necessarily planning to be homeschooling for the rest of the kids' career, but maybe you'll love it and do it, that's fine. But even if it is just this idea of temporary, sure, maybe there might be like your geometry student needs to like finish that out or something. I don't know. There's resources available, but not worrying about the checklist and the schedule and the, like what can we do together that is just purposeful activities that are cultivating our family relationship and honoring, the difficult time that both you and your students or your kids are going through, just recognizing that. And like when people ask me, just generally before I started doing this about a year ago, when people ask me like, how do you do it? How do you, whatever, the how do you do it thing. I've started answering, it was always really uncomfortable to be asked that, and I've started answering it with just imperfectly. That's how I do it.
I love that. It's such a great thought. And I think that's just, for me, how that hits me is it's a great way to set expectations that, look, there is, even the PhD in education doesn't do it perfectly. Right. So I mean, like, perfection is such, I feel like, sets up a lot of people for failure, especially when this is being thrust upon you and it has not been part of your decision-making process or thought process before, and it just kind of lands on your lap. Oh man, now I'm faced with this. And I, another thought for me that I had is just have lots of love, grace, patience, and discovery. Like, rather than the aim, like this is maybe a thought, is like, how do you even define education? Right. Let's even start there. Like, what does that even define our terms? What does that even mean? And I think for those families that are, maybe new into this world, is education can be general, right? Just discovering each other, learning about your spouse and your children and, each other. Like that's learning. In my opinion, that is education. And it, I love what you said too. Like, it doesn't have to mean that you have to replicate, your school at home. It can be whatever you want it to be during this time of, a lot of stress and emotions and that kind of thing. That's awesome, man. Great thoughts. Okay, I've got two more questions. One, is there a particular, like, a fun activity that you guys like doing together as a family?
Definitely reading. I don't know if that's, it's kind of nerdy, but we definitely love to read aloud together. Like, I pretty much always have a book going with the kids. Now that they're older, well, some of them, they're mostly older, we don't always have a ton of time for it. So we've been reading I can't remember the name of the book, one of the Jane Eyre books, not Jane Eyre, Jane Austen books, since like August. We read it when we get a chance. But when they were little, it was just constantly, we would go through novels a ton. But so that's been nice. We're actually almost finished with the book because of no sports right now. So I always have a book going with them. And then the older kids, they all read to each other. They go to bed pretty early, but they don't have to go to sleep. And so they take turns like reading. The oldest usually reads to the other two. My daughter sometimes reads to the younger. Like, we just love to read out loud together and be dramatic.
That's great. And I once got a chance to see Andrew Pudewa do a 45-minute presentation on the power of reading aloud with your families.
I've seen that.
And he drew in some amazing, I was like, wow, it's amazing. I even have that video on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful, like, I had no idea all the benefits of reading aloud among with your family.
When we first started it, it was mostly because I just tend to be a little bit lazy. And when they were toddlers, it was like, this is something we can all just sit still for like 45 minutes and I don't have to do anything. I can just lay on the couch, But when they got older, I saw the pre-draw video actually years ago, and I was like, see, I'm doing amazing things. I'm working so hard with it.
Yes, I love that. That's right. Absolutely. No, that's excellent. What would be an encouraging Bible passage or verse that you have gone to during some of the tough times that you've had through your homeschooling journey?
Look not only to your own interests. Yeah, Philippians 2:4. Look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus. I often come back to that for, numerous, it's just, there's so many things in there. But for me as a parent, like, I have to be careful that the kids don't think everything's about them, certainly, especially homeschooling, right? Like, we might be tempted to accidentally put our whole life with them first. But, when am I being selfish? When am I being as a parent? And then also, of course, for them as kids. And when I feel discouraged or frustrated about, school stuff, which spring, I tend to be pretty more high strung in the spring, thinking about next year. Have we done enough? Have we accomplished what we planned to? All the projects are due, mock trial. And what, trying to take that thought captive. What is this stress? Why do I feel this way? What is it that I'm feeling? Where's this insecurity? And is it that I'm not looking to the interests of others? Is it like, because maybe you haven't achieved this thing? Is it make me look bad as a teacher? Am I, am I worried about you and concerned for you, or am I concerned about what I look like? And then have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus. I can't just force myself to do these things. I can't force myself for very long to look not only to my own interests, but I know that through the power of Christ that, because I am in the blood of Christ, that it's been, he gives me through the Holy Spirit the power to be able to live out these things. And when I can't, which is all the time. So.
Amen. Great. Love that, Jennifer. Great thoughts. For those of you watching, please, I'd love to hear some comments from you all in the threads below on what points resonated the most with you that maybe Jennifer shared that was encouraging or that really stood out to you. And please share some of your thoughts as well. What are some encouraging tips, advice that you received or recommend to other homeschooling families that may have been encouraging for you? Jennifer, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
God bless you and your whole family.
You too. Thank you.